For quite some time, many of you have been asking for this, and I'm pleased to finally share 3 gripping stories that unfold during school lockdowns. These accounts are not just tales of fear, they are profound reminders of the fragility of safety in our everyday lives. It was an ordinary, uneventful Friday in calculus class, 7th period to be precise. The week was drawing to a close, and the much anticipated spring break was just around the corner. I could sense the restlessness in my classmates as they shifted in their seats, the excitement of impending freedom palpable in the air. Unlike many of my friends who were burdened with tests that day, our laid-back teacher opted for a lighter approach and decided to engage us with games on Sporkle.com. As we immersed ourselves in a quiz about brand logos, I can vividly recall the exact moment everything changed. Just after my friend successfully identified the logo for Adidas, the calm atmosphere was shattered by the urgent voice of the dean coming through the loudspeaker. He sounded frantic as he instructed all teachers to initiate lockdown procedures, emphasizing with an unsettling tone that this was not a drill. A wave of chills washed over me, and goosebumps prickled my arms as our typically composed teacher hurried to extinguish the lights and usher us into the back corner of the classroom. We huddled in silence for what felt like an eternity, about 2 minutes, until the familiar humming from the panel in the back of the room ceased abruptly, signaling that the school had cut all power. We exchanged anxious glances, a shared understanding dawning upon us that this was a grave situation. Moments later, we were jolted by the sound of a man screaming at the top of his lungs in the hallway. The distressing noise sent 2 girls in our class into tears, amplifying the tension that hung in the air. As the screams drew nearer, we heard the man banging violently on the lockers, his voice echoing with threats. "I'll kill all of you." In that harrowing moment, I felt a profound fear for my life. My teacher hurriedly shushed us, and we glanced at one another, desperately trying to gauge our peers' reactions amidst the chaos. The pounding escalated as it reached our classroom door, and one of the terrified girls screamed, "No!" The intensity of the banging grew, accompanied by the man's frantic shouts of, "Open up!" The atmosphere turned suffocatingly tense, and 2 girls began sobbing uncontrollably. It felt as though time had stretched into an eternity as he pounded on the door, but eventually the sounds retreated down the hallway, the man still screaming in the distance. After what seemed like an eternity, although it was probably only 10 minutes, the dean returned to the loudspeaker, which was unusual for him. He calmly explained that a mentally unstable man had breached the school and assaulted the woman at the front desk, causing her to flee in terror. The staff were unsure if he was armed, which only intensified our anxiety. At that time, our school was lacking in security cameras and adequate safety measures, rendering it to such alarming incidents. The staff conducted a thorough sweep of the hallways and classrooms, but the man remained elusive. The dean directed teachers to continue their lessons while ensuring all doors stayed locked and forbidding any students from leaving for any reason. The most disturbing revelation came later. A janitor working the night shift had discovered the man sleeping in a storage closet near the back of the school. Rumors suggested that a .44 Magnum was peeking out of his pocket. It was speculated that the janitor must have inadvertently awakened him, perhaps by leaving the closet door ajar, because by the time the police arrived, the man had vanished into thin air. To this day, my entire class remains in the dark about whether that man was ever apprehended. I like to believe he is now receiving the help he desperately needs. In my middle school, we had 2 separate lunch periods. The first was designated for all 6th graders and a handful of 7th graders, while the second accommodated the remaining 7th graders and all 8th graders. The lockdown I experienced occurred in early October on a dreary, overcast and rainy day. During the first lunch period, I was abruptly jolted by the sound of 4 loud booms. At first, I dismissed them as mere thunder, but the entire lunch crowd erupted into screams of panic. Initially, I thought the kids were overreacting, but the urgent presence of campus security rushing in, shouting for everyone to head to the multi-purpose room, quickly shifted my perspective. Those who were in line for lunch were instructed to discard their food and come inside immediately. My friends and I joined a throng of students in the multi-purpose room, which featured a massive back wall made entirely of see-through glass. As we were hurried in, security personnel began hastily covering the glass with curtains, while adults were positioned at every exit. My friend Eric, ever the curious one, approached one of the adults to inquire about what was happening. Upon his return, he relayed a chilling message. "You know those houses in front of TMS?" I nodded in acknowledgement, and he continued, "There's a mentally unstable man who has barricaded himself in his house and is threatening to commit suicide and kill the cops if they try to evict him. He was outside watching the kids in a creepy way. The situation took a turn for the worse when we learned that the man was a registered sex offender. We were confined to the multi-purpose room for a full hour, which spanned 2 periods. After the crisis was resolved, we were escorted back to our classrooms one by one. Later, I discovered that the man lived next to my friend Brandy, who recounted a disturbing incident on Halloween when she had seen him from her window, inflicting wounds on his own arm and writing in his blood, "Don't come here or I'll kill you." At the time, many, including Brandy, had dismissed it as a Halloween prank. But following this horrifying incident, we recognized the genuine danger he posed, and we were all profoundly relieved that he never came near us. Now, at the age of 22 and freshly graduated from college, I recently landed a job as a computer intern at my old high school, working in the chaotic and cluttered basement. Despite the disorder, there is a small, well-equipped office down there, featuring 3 spacious desks, 2 mini fridges, a flat-screen TV, and, thankfully, air conditioning, a much-appreciated luxury for both students and teachers. I owe this opportunity to 3 of my former computer teachers who valued my work ethic and helped me secure the position. Everything was going smoothly until something unsettling occurred a few weeks ago. My 2 co-workers, Dave and Gary, were upstairs absorbed in paperwork while I was enjoying a sandwich during my lunch break. Suddenly, I received a phone call from a woman in the front office, her voice filled with urgency as she informed me that the school was on lockdown due to a possibly armed intruder. Panic coursed through me as I turned off the lights in the office. It didn't have an actual door, just a large opening, and the basement door didn't even have a functioning lock. For my safety, I switched off all the lights and my computer screen. I texted Gary and Dave, but my messages went unanswered. I sat in the dark for what felt like an eternity, approximately 20 minutes, playing games on my phone while anxiously awaiting the call from the front office that would signal the end of the lockdown. I had no way of knowing what was transpiring upstairs, and I couldn't make any calls until I was informed that it was safe to do so. Then I heard the basement door creak open, the sound reverberating ominously through the silence. I froze, uncertain whether I should call out to Gary or Dave. Footsteps began to race down the stairs, growing louder as they approached my office. Instinctively, I pushed my chair away and crawled under my desk, my heart pounding in my chest. Someone entered the office but neglected to turn on the lights. The oppressive silence was terrifying. I felt as though any sudden noise could seal my fate. Just then, my phone dinged with a text message, sending a fresh wave of fear coursing through me as I clenched my teeth. The footsteps drew nearer, and in a moment of sheer panic, I dove out from under the desk, pleading with whoever it was not to kill me. A man wearing a red plaid button-up shirt and a reddish-black cap grabbed my arm and pulled me up. "It's okay," he reassured me. "I'm just hiding down here with you." "What's going on up there?" I whispered, my voice trembling. He ignored my question and instead asked if there was an exit. I pointed. "Yeah, around that way." Before he could make a move, I pressed, "Who are you?" There was a brief pause before he explained that he was there to pick up his son when a teacher instructed him to hide. After his explanation, I checked my phone and saw a text from Dave that read, "Dude, this is crazy. Some guy with a gun shot Mr. Buckley. He's wearing a red shirt and hat. Whatever you do, don't come upstairs." I was on the verge of reading that out loud when I looked up and felt my stomach drop. The man noticed my suspicious gaze and panic surged within me. I bolted for the stairs just as a gunshot rang out, the sound echoing through the basement. I heard the bullet ricochet off something metallic in the darkness. Miraculously, the bullet missed me and I managed to escape upstairs. Fortunately, police officers were stationed at all exits, including the basement, and they apprehended the man as soon as I opened the door. The good news was that Mr. Buckley survived the gunshot. It was later revealed that he and the assailant had some sort of conflict, but the specifics were never disclosed. All we knew was that Mr. Buckley had done nothing to warrant such a violent outburst. The haunting sound of that gunshot will forever echo in my mind, a chilling reminder of the fragility of safety in our lives. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed these chilling tales, don't forget to subscribe for more horror content. I post frequently, so there's always something new to keep you up at night. Until next time, stay scared.